Stampers and Crafters, my name's Catherine and I want to welcome you to Bello's Designs. Today we're going to be creating this card called April Showers, May Flowers. We'll need a few things to get us started. We'll be using a piece of 5.5 by 5.5 Multifarious cardstock. And for our card base, you'll need a piece of 11 by 5.5 scored right down the middle to make that square card base. We'll be using just a few stamps from the Lavinia line to complete our project today. We'll use the LAV 695 Foliage Set 2, the LAV 093 Lavender, and the Fairy Foragers, which are LAV 498. In addition to that, we'll be using the Cardio MajeMask Raindrops Stencils. We'll be using mostly this large one and then this smaller one up here in the corner. When you get your stencils in, I'm going to highly recommend that you keep the little pieces that come with it because those will come in handy for us to use as a mask. I also went ahead and cut out just a couple of extra ones just to cover everything up. We'll be using the blueberry, and I used the blueberry and the pink together to create this purple tone. If you've watched my other videos, you've probably seen me do that. I also have grabbed my palette to use with my fan brush. I really love this fan brush that Patty Del Bello has in her store. It has an acrylic handle, so you don't have to worry about the wood splintering and peeling if you forget and leave it in the water for too long. We'll be using some blending brushes. So I really have grown pretty fond of these smaller ones that I have been able to purchase. And I'm going to be using the largest of the three sizes that I have, along with the smallest for my blue. I have some Lisa Horton Cloud 9 inks. We'll be using the Sweet Violets, the Juicy Pineapple, and the Deep Ocean today. And we'll need 2 ink pads from Lavinia Elements. I have the Lime Punch and the Olive. Just a couple more things and we'll be ready to get started. We'll be using the stickles at the end. Some deco foil. Lavinia sells this as the Wow foils, and I wasn't sure how it would work for me. I watched a few videos and decided to give this brand a little try. I ordered it in rainbow so that I have a variety of colors so you can snip off just what you need and you don't have to have a lot of waste. And then I do not have a quickie glue pen, but I do have these that I was able to get from Amazon, and they work just fine for this. And then lastly, we'll be working with the heat tool to set that glue as we go along. All right, to get started, I'm going to begin with the largest raindrop and moving it closest to the bottom without going over the edge as I can, because I want to save lots of room for this raindrop up in the left corner. This is the one that we're going to be using, as well as the big one. So we'll get that tilted at a nice angle so that we have space for a couple more in there. And I'm going to cover it with a piece of scrap paper just so I don't get any extra ink in spaces I don't want it. All right, I'm going to begin with my Sweet Violet from Lisa Horton.
All right, I'm pretty happy with how that's turning out. I'm going to clean off my mask, and we're going to come back in and work on the largest of the smaller raindrops. So let's just get all the ink off of that so we don't have any accidents we're not intending to have. And I'm going to start with this one right up here. Still staying with the smallest brush and the Deep Ocean ink. Just want to do the littlest hint of blue to outline this tiny raindrop. Okay, that's one happy little raindrop. We'll do another one up here in this corner. All right, I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. I'm going to do one last one down here in the right corner. All right. I almost forgot that I want to come in with some yellow right in the middle, just to add a little bit of brightness to my raindrop, and I'm going to use very little of that. So I'll bring back my scrap paper just to hold that down. Make sure we don't have too much yellow. I'm going to wipe most of it off on my scrap paper and then come just into the center of my raindrop with it. All right, there we go. Just the slightest touch of yellow right in the center. I'm going to clean off my mask so I have no accidents and it gets put away nice and clean and ready for the next time. Now we're going to come back with the inserts from our mask, and I'm going to put that right here in my raindrop. I believe it goes that way. All these tiny little pieces are just really good to save because you just never know, and I didn't intend on using this when I started, but when I realized that I needed to mask off some of my card because it just needed something a little bit extra, they certainly came in handy, and I'm glad I didn't toss them out because that was a thought I had when I first received this in the mail. All right, so I'm going to use the one raindrop that came with the kit or the set, and I've gone ahead and just traced a couple more to have extras just to make it a little bit easier to add some splatter to my card. So now I'm going to come back in with my fan brush and my blue Dinkles, and we're going to do just a little bit of splatter over the top. And here we go. We don't need a lot of this, I don't find, but you might like it a little bit heavier. You can certainly do what pleases you. All right, so there's the blue. I'm going to dry that off a little bit and come back with my purple. Just get it all set. Right, now we have some blue and purple. I'm going to rinse that off. Get it out of the way. Right, I'm happy with how that came out, and I was able to avoid any splatter on the inside of my card, although I do see that we have a little bit of smudging here, but we're going to be able to cover that up with our stamping. All right, the next step is to build up the flowers around the inside of the raindrop, and I'm going to start with the Lime Punch ink and this little flourish right here from the Foliage Set. And I will begin at the bottom and work my way up each side. I'll be using lots of first and second generation stamping just to build up some depth. Maybe a couple more at the bottom. All right. I'm going to clean off my block because I did not do a good job of keeping the ink only on my stamp. And I'm going to switch out this stamp for the larger of the oak leaves from the Foliage Set, and coming back in with my olive elements. Once again, adding a couple of, tapping that a couple times with each stamp just to build some depth. It seems a little heavy there, but we'll be able to mask that. Maybe one more there. All right, switching that out for the tiniest of the oak leaves. All right, I'm pretty happy with how that looks. I'm going to clean that up. Clean up my stamp and put it back. We'll be taking out the lavender, which is also going to need a bigger stamp block. So I'm going to switch that out here. And grab some scrap paper. And we're going to come back in with the lavender, and I'm going to mask it off so that we're only seeing the stems above the leaves. And we're going to stamp that in the Cloud 9 Sweet Violet. So once again, just a couple of generations of stamping on this to give it a little bit of extra depth. And maybe one more here. All right, we're going to finish up our stamping with the fairies that will be inside of the raindrops. All right, I'm going to be using the fairy foragers, and I'm going to be using all except for this little one who is kneeling down. I'm going to start with this one who will be facing the raindrop, and we're going to put her in this drop up here in this left corner. Once again, stamping in the Sweet Violet. And I like to give these stamps, I find with the Lisa Horton inks, if you get a little bit of a better coverage on your stamp if you give it a few taps on the ink pad and then just stamp off. And I like to come in and do it again. Then I know that I'm getting a nice even coverage with my ink pad. So we'll hold that down for a moment and let the paper soak up the ink. And that's a pretty nicely stamped image. We can come in with our Wink of Stella at the ends and touch that up a little bit. All right, the next one I'm going to use is the one with the lantern, and she's going to be holding up her light for everybody to see right up here in the corner. So once again, just inking up with that Sweet Violet, giving it a little stamp off, and then re-inking it just to get that nice coverage on my stamp. And we'll just press it down for a moment and let the ink soak in. There we go. All right, and we'll clean her off and come back with the final fairy. Which will be this one. There we go. I'm pretty happy with how those stamped. All right, the next step with this is we're going to add the foil to the inside of this raindrop. And I have pre-cut a piece of purple and blue. And I really like the way it looks with the purple up top and the blue down at the bottom. So I'm going to try to stick to that design. And I'm going to begin by just going through and adding some little spots of glue where I want to put that. So I'll do a few up here. Maybe a few in the middle. All right, you could certainly wave that around with your quickie glue pen and let it dry, but I find that for me, the best way to work with these glue pens that I have is to use my heat tool to heat set everything. So I'm gonna take a minute to do that. All right. All right, and there we have it, our finished card. Thanks for stopping by.